between your legs to the deck. She asked for some money and then she pulled me to the...
Better turn that off before my video gets flagged. Do not own the copyrights to that music. Pretty sure that was Wiz Khalifa. Had some Wiz Khalifa going hard coming out of the house this morning. Been up since 6 o'clock. Read a book for almost 45 minutes. I'm excited to get the day started. I wanted to share my lessons from this morning. Something I was listening to on this Audible book that I'm reading. I'm almost done. You might have heard me talk a lot about change, which I think change gets a bad rap a lot of times. People consider change like some type of admittance of a problem. And I just want to make sure I put it in the correct context, that when I talk about change, or we talk about change, it shouldn't come from a negative perspective of change that is required because of failure, or change that's required because of some type of character flaw or something like that. Matter of fact, like, if you think about just us as people, almost with 100% certainty, from the time that we're a baby to we're young adults, maybe in our depending on the person, mid to late 20s, early 30s, we're constantly changing. And a lot of it has to do with just our bodies changing. It has a lot to do with, I can't do glasses on, don't like that. But it's forced. It's forced as a matter of, the evolution of our bodies and brains. And then at some point when we get to be that age, we think that change is bad. And, I certainly don't claim to be an expert, but what I do is I try and take things that I learn from people that are smarter than me, or have accomplished things that I want to accomplish, or even greater, and I try and learn from them. And this particular book that I'm reading, which, by the way, if anybody wants to read a good book, if you're looking for a good book, this is called Switch. I have mine on the app called Audible, where I listen to all of my books. But it's called Switch. It's a blue cover. There's an actual light switch on the cover of the book. And it talks about a lot of success stories involving change, and really focuses on the psychology of how change... Hi, Sonia. There's my lovely wife. I love you. And today, the particular chapter I was listening to really kind of caught hold of me. And it talked about, the particular example that it used was a school. And I think this is a great story, so I'm going to use it. But there was a school that had historically had extremely low scoring. And very few of the students were successful enough in school to move on to college. And I don't remember the name, but this principal took over, and she changed the grading system. And her philosophy was one in which that failure should never be considered a destination, that failure is oftentimes the portion in the middle of growth that feels like failure, but it's really where we experience the tremendous amount of growth and reflection that's necessary to catapult ourselves to greater things. So what she did is she changed their entire school grading system. And, we typically have A, B, C, D, F, right? Or maybe there's an E in there, who knows? Been too long since I've been in school. But what she did was there was A, B, C, and then NY. And NY stood for not yet. And what they did was they would not allow that student to stop working on that particular test, that particular assignment, until not yet became a passable grade, which was only considered to be a C. So what they did is they removed a failing grade as an option, right? So think about that as you approach this and try and put it in the context of your personal life, or put it in the context of your business, or put it in the context of really anything, right? Because everything we do has a start, a finish, a middle, and there's a positive outcome that's possible and a negative outcome that's possible with virtually every action that we take. So in this school, they removed failure as an acceptable conclusion, right? So if you took a test or did an assignment, there was no F. There was only not yet. So what they did was they relabeled the middle part of growth, which a lot of people treat as failure, and then they stop. So some people would, students, for example, would take a test and fail and move on to the next. Like there was almost this sigh of relief, even though that they had got a very poor grade, that they were done, right? Like how often do we say that? Like, yeah, it didn't work out, but I'm just glad it's over. And when we're talking about, growth or change or development, that's a bad thing. We don't want growth or development as humans to stop, because we reach a level of complacency, and it's inevitable that even as we get older, there are, the world has different expectations of us. I mean, when you become a parent, whatever age that is, you're older than you were before you didn't have kids. There's different obligations and requirements that you have. You have another human being that relies on you almost exclusively as their parent until they get to school and have, other influencing factors. But initially, for many, many years, as a parent, you're the most important person in your child's life. So you cannot be the same person you were when you had no responsibilities, no obligations, no kids, and could come and go as you please, and your actions had no repercussions. So, it's inevitable that we have to continuously improve. Now, the best way to do that is to be intentional about it, set goals, have a plan and execute the plan. But even as we go through life, there's things that'll smack us in the face. I mean, look what we're dealing with now. Between the virus and all of the challenges that have come with that, both socially, economically, medically, we could treat this as a failure and shut down as a society and say, it is what it is, and I'll just be glad when it's over and go back to normal life. Or we can learn from it. We can treat this middle part as the, center of the beginning and the end, right? When we start something and when we win, and then the middle should never be failure, and it should only be growth. And I thought that was an extraordinary example where this school teacher took their students. And then what happened is something like 85% of their students became college passable, college entry level students. They had the ability, the grades, the experience, and even the capacity and interest to go on to further their studies at college. So, it had a remarkable impact. And I thought it was a great example because we can all, relate to school and grades, whether it's our own personal experience or dealing with our children. And, some of our kids, ace school, other, children, if they're like me and mine, at times have struggles, and it's easy to get discouraged. So if you take from that the lesson that the beginning and the end, right? In the beginning, we should celebrate small victories. And this is the other lesson. So just getting started is a victory. When you start down the path of change, or you start down a project, you should celebrate the beginning, right? Because the beginning is actually an accomplishment. When you start something, even if you haven't finished or you haven't netted any positive results, the fact that you've taken action should be celebrated. And it'll help you build confidence. You actually need to anticipate and expect what feels like failure, but what you have to do in order to be able to power through that and get through that portion of the process is to relabel failure as learning, right? So I didn't fail, I learned. And we've seen this, and I think sometimes we use these quotes or we post these memes from famous athletes or past presidents or movie stars. And, we've heard it a million times, right? That we learn more from a loss than we do a win. And the growth is in the pain. But I don't know that I'll speak for myself that I ever really accepted it as something that I could do. I thought that was like a mindset and, only something that extraordinary people were capable of. But in reality, the only thing it requires is an awareness to simply just stop calling something a failure and refer to it as a learning experience and treat it as the middle. So when you hit, right? So if you think it, I'm a very a visual person. When I think about where I am and where I want to get to, if I look at everything in between there as just the middle, like there is no end before my end. There is no end before I've reached my goal, whatever that goal may be. And any roadblock or anything that I hit in between is simply just the middle. Anything between you and your goal should be treated as the middle, not the end, because you haven't reached your goal. And it might seem overwhelming at the time. It may seem insurmountable, but I can tell you, just like we said in the beginning, that it should be celebrated that you've taken action and even started a project. Celebrate the beginning of an action. Celebrate the beginning of change. The same should be said for starting over, right? And I'm using starting over as if we didn't quit, but we're somewhere in the middle and we've hit a roadblock or we've come across the challenge that feels like the end. But if it's not where we want to be, if we haven't gotten to that destination or accomplished our goal, then we should celebrate again the perseverance to simply keep going, to simply keep on. Because oftentimes, and we think about it, like at any, so when you start or begin and re-up the enthusiasm that you started with when you hit a roadblock or you hit a hurdle in the middle, that should be celebrated as well. Because oftentimes what happens is when we restart or we recommit to our goal, even though we're halfway through and it feels like failure, if we simply just treat that like the middle, then we'll work through it. And when we get out the other side, now we've installed even this greater confidence in ourselves to be able to not only start, but to work through challenges and resist the compelling real feeling of wanting to quit. So just treat what has previously been referred to as failures. Anything in the middle between your beginning, which is a success, anything that you start should be celebrated. If you start change or you start a process or you start any project, you should celebrate the fact that you've taken action. The middle part that often is disguised as failure is just another opportunity to start, right? Like Wes says, small battles your whole life. That's what it's about. But treat failures and just like I'm telling you how big of an impact just word association can be. Stop calling failures and call them lessons. That alone will change the whole way that you perceive progress, because that's really what it is. If you try something and you fail, that's not a failure. It's progress. And, anybody that I've known has never had a success path that goes like this. It doesn't happen. Are there, rare examples of that? We all just watched, and I refer to it a lot. We watched the Jordan special, right? That guy experienced some of the greatest accomplishments in the history of sports. And now he's, one of the wealthiest individuals in the world. But if you look and you watched his story, it was filled with disappointment and filled with things that could have felt like and been treated like failures. But for him, he treated them as life lessons. And one of the life lessons for me has been to expect failure. It's going to happen. There's going to be things where you attempt and you're unsuccessful, and you have to take 2 steps back, reflect, use it as a lesson, and then drive through. And now what you've done is you've actually equipped yourself, because you've taken that chance, you've taken that risk, you've taken that initiative, and you were unsuccessful. You are now better equipped both physically and mentally and psychologically to be able to better maneuver through those set of circumstances. I've watched my son play video games before, and he gets stuck at one area, and he goes over and over and over and over and over, sometimes dozens of times, where it feels like, I'm sure to him, that he'll never be able to figure out how to get past that level or that phase of this video game. But what happens is, and I watch it as he does it 5, 10, 20, 30 times, is each time he makes a small adjustment. Sometimes he gets frustrated and he doesn't make any adjustment. He runs right into a wall again. But when he's finally successful at this video game and advancing is when he's learned from the 35 times that he's been unsuccessful, and he makes the modifications or the changes in his behavior and then the final time he gets through, it's like a breeze without even a hiccup. So when you come out the other side of that, the success is phenomenal. The experience is phenomenal. And now it's better equipped us for things down the road. Because inevitably, like all challenge or problems have a lot of similarities. I mean, it's not going to be the same answer or the same solution, but there's going to be a set of circumstances where you come across a challenge somewhere down the road, and you will now be better equipped to be able to handle those sets of challenges because you've done it before. I've been here before. I know what this feels like. I know what it sounds like. And if anything, whether you have any information or real knowledge about how to accomplish or overcome that obstacle, if anything, you've proven to yourself internally that you have the confidence and the perseverance to do it, which is half the battle. So accept that success comes with 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Don't look at the 2 steps back as a lack of progress. Use those. If you think about when you get to a place, right, all you can see is what ahead. When you have failures and they force you back. So if you go 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, now that you're 2 steps backwards, again, I'm very visual. I look at that and saying, well, now I can actually see a little bit better what happened when I made those 3 steps and advanced, what led to this 2 steps backwards. And I have a much, much better observation and, visual ability to be able to see how I got to where I am, what led to me having those 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And I can actually see further down the road towards my goal than I could when I was up against it. So again, replace the word failure with lessons. Replace the word failure with not yet. I didn't fail. Right? If someone says, have you got there yet? Have you gotten that? No, not yet. There should never be a no, I failed, or no, I quit. It should only be, nah, not yet. And that alone, that change in mindset, will better equip you to be able to, power through perseverance. And again, Wes, the last 2 months, if we treated this shutdown or, people's shuttering of businesses or health challenges or, 1,000 different things that we as a society have been faced with over the last, 8 weeks, we would be, innocent bystanders and things would happen to us rather than us taking the initiative to innovate and power through and move through things as they become even more challenging. So move towards the fear, move towards the pain. Failure is where the real growth is. But a tip would be is just stop labeling failure as that because it has such a negative connotation. And from now on, just call it lessons. From now on, call it not yet. I didn't fail. I just haven't got there yet. I hope everybody has a great day. Happy hump day. Peace.